Hello everyone and welcome to another video. What I'm going to be doing today is running you through what is in this thing here, my gym bag. It's a bit loud, sorry neighbours. But as travel has kick-started again in the UK, I've been up and down the country and trying to train as I go, because whilst I'm training for strength and endurance with a multitude of sports contained within that concept, it's more of a discipline, grouping, shall we say, it means I need a lot of kit. So whether that's strength stuff like wrist wraps, etc., I've got all that in my bag, to cycling kit, to swimming kit, etc., etc., and I've got to have that with me at all times depending on what sessions I've got on the go. So there's a lot of kit to manage. Some of this stuff I've had for almost 6-7 years, so it's lasted me a long time, but I'll get into that as we get further into the video. Before we do that, I have a few things to ask from you. First of all, if at any stage you like the video, do give it a like. Obviously, that's what it's there for. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. I see no reason why you can't do that. Just take your finger, mouse, a little journey. You see that button? There we go. Cheers, thank you. And if you do have anything to say or any questions about anything I say as I go, do drop a comment down below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Without any further ado, let's see what's in my gym bag. So we're going to start with the stuff that never leaves this bag, which is predominantly strength training kit. I've obviously got my cycling shoes, etc., that we'll come on to, that kind of come and go depending on where I am. I need them for rides out on the road when I'm here, but I will equally need them if I can find a watt bike when I'm traveling, etc., etc. But first and foremost, let's open Pandora's box. First up is my nice bright red pair of Adidas Adipowers, which I believe have been long discontinued, but I've had these since I was 17, so I've had these for 8 years, and they have come with me all over the world, seen me through several powerlifting competitions, and are in reasonable nick. Soles on them, I mean, you don't exactly run in them or wear them outside much, but they're in decent nick. I use these still for front squats, safety bar squats, and high bar squats, and trap bar deadlifts. So they still have a place in my training, not as much as they used to when I used to do all my squatting in them, but I now do my squatting in flats, Levo barefoots predominantly. Is there even a... Yeah, there is a V on the sole there. I didn't just show you my soles, strangely. But that is the first thing to mention. Had these a very long time. Next up, we have my color coordinated pair of knee sleeves. So if I know I'm doing a session in the Adipowers, I will put these on. These are 7mm IPF approved neoprene knee sleeves that are made by Mark Bell's company Slingshot, the strong branding. You can get these in the UK, but I think they're imported through America. But yeah, got a pair of these which I use to color coordinate with these because, you know, that's important. Next up, we have the pair of knee sleeves that I use most of the time, which are the exact same model, but just in a more Fergus Crawley oriented color scheme. So just sort of gray and black camo. And I then have a 18mm pair of wrist wraps, gangster wrist wraps to go with them. Again, from Mark Bell's Slingshot range. These are great. These are a little bit shorter than I would like, to be honest. That was my mistake for ordering them too short. I tend to use these for all bench pressing and any sort of rep work up to about 200 kilos on squats. And again, color coordination, matchy, very nice, very nice. Whenever I need a longer pair of wrist wraps, here is a pair of all-purpose wrist wraps from, again, Mark Bell's Slingshot. Been using these for a very long time, and I believe I've had this pair for almost 6 years. Worked really, really well, really quite soft and forgiving, easy to use, and have lasted me a very long time. So for wrist wraps, generally speaking, they don't give you any sort of strength gain per se, but they allow you to be more aligned, allow you to take more weight by stiffening the areas where you might not be able to have the strength to hold in position. So like on a low bar squat, for example, you want to have your wrist like this, but without the wrist wraps on, it'd be easy to just do that. And if you go in there, then you might start to lose the bar and it gets pretty nasty pretty fast. But these help you keep that in position. With bench press, they help you keep your wrists aligned for bar path, etc., etc. And just generally speaking, for longevity, they are great. Same story with the knee sleeves, by the way, I forgot to mention. Generally speaking, this style of knee sleeve, 7mm neoprene, doesn't have any strength return. Physiologically speaking, people do tend to report a big increase in strength. Well, not a big increase, an increase in strength when using them, but most of the evidence and research suggests that comes from proprioception and feeling around the position of your squat and mimicking the stretch reflex effect by just having that pinch behind your knees. Some IPF lifters you'll find with plastic bags and talc trying to get on like extra small sleeves before a competition, but there's no real reason why that would make you any stronger because there is no rebound effect in these. These are just there to keep your joints warm, keep your joints healthy, and whether you want to be really strong or not are a good choice of kit to have in your gym bag for if you are doing consistent lifting. Next up, we have some lifting straps. These are probably not the ones that you're used to seeing because I actually can't really be bothered faffing around with these. I don't like using lifting straps generally speaking, and I'm actually much weaker on deadlifts when I'm using them. So these you just put on like this and then grip the bar and bring it over and grip like that. So you've only really got one wrap around the bar, so arguably the grip is reduced, but these are generally Olympic lifting straps because if you get caught in a snatch up here, you can just let go and you don't have the wrapping of a bar that can sort of pull your shoulder with it. So that's what they're for. Mostly use these for bent over rows, any high rep deadlifts, but honestly I just lose all my strength off the floor when I'm using lifting straps anyway, so I don't get that much use out of these on deadlifts, which is probably where most people would conventionally use them. Again, had these about 6 years, lasted me really well. If you take care of your kit, it will take care of you. Let that be a lesson to you all. Phone tripod, so I can film my lifts. Don't tend to use any of the footage I've got from my phone for anything on YouTube, anything on Instagram, other than for stories, but I've always had this in here as a way of basically monitoring how I execute my lifts. When I was powerlifting focused, that was a huge part of it, always looking at what I was getting done and wanting to film my lifts from the correct angle to see my bar position, my bar path, my knee position, all this stuff that you can use to improve on your technique over time. Next up, and more recently, I have been using my Slingshot by Mark Bell knee wraps again. These are 2.5 meters, I believe, quite weak knee wraps. These are sort of like pretty boy knee wraps in the world of powerlifting, but they do give you a bit of a rebound effect out of the bottom. Obviously, for those that powerlift, you'll know what the purpose of these are. There's federations where you can compete raw with wraps, which is belt, wrist wraps, or knee sleeves and knee wraps. And it basically just gives you a bit of a rebound, a bit more stopping power in the bottom. There's lots of different ways in which you can manipulate them, and it ultimately depends on how you squat in terms of style, on how much you benefit from them. I'm actually midway through testing how much strength I can put on over the next 6 to 8 weeks in a pair of knee wraps. So you can find out for yourself very soon how much it puts onto my squat, but I think there are much stiffer, shorter or longer versions of these out there. I'm actually a little bit out of the game when it comes to knee wraps, so if you want any more information, speak to your local meathead. Sign of the times, I've got a rogue mask that I didn't know was in there. Next up, I have some lifting chalk, which I just take with me everywhere in case I never have access to any on site. I massively prefer raw chalk, real chalk as it were, but obviously some gyms don't like that because the cleanup is a nightmare. Even in here, it's a pain in the arse. I've got to have the hoover in after every single session, even midway through a session sometimes. But this is just handy to have if you're ever in a sweaty, humid room and need to get some more grip, especially if you're pulling hook grip, especially if it's on a thicker bar than you're used to. When I'm traveling, if I'm in and out of a leisure centre or a pure gym, etc., I might come across a 30 millimeter bar that I try and hook grip and suddenly everything falls apart. So good to have that in there. Next up, we have my SBD lifting belt, which is 13 millimeters and very, very well made. Don't know if you can see there, but day 3 of having that was a few days after I got Odie, my pig dog, and he was a puppy, and he chewed the end of my very expensive lifting belt, which I bought on a student budget. So to say I was displeased would be an understatement, but basically this is a combination of a lever and a prong belt because you've got the adjustable controls there, and then you can lock that in like that. There's a few misconceptions around belts in terms of how much strength they actually give you. What they're really good for is increasing your tightness through your trunk, increasing your bracing through diaphragm breathing so you can get as much control into your position as possible. They don't inherently give you more strength, but what they do allow you to do is generate more tightness, more tension, which can in turn lead to higher force output. So if you learn to use them effectively, they can improve your strength and overall tightness. They don't deactivate your core, as some people might tell you. You do engage your core in a similar way. but it isn't a substitute for direct core training in that sense. So if you're doing all your training in a belt, it's probably still recommended to do some direct core training alongside that. You can use beltless training as a sort of variation in your training if you want to improve position, but ultimately I tend to use this anything over 75–80% on all my lifts, because I want my warm-ups and my reps to feel as if they would feel on my heaviest sets, if that makes sense. But this is by SBD, who are a notoriously expensive company, but they are a notoriously reliable company as well, British made. This belt has been an absolute godsend. Whenever I've tried a different belt, it has felt awful in comparison, and I had what I used to think were good belts prior to that. So if you are looking for a belt and you've heard good things about the SBD belt, that is very much the case. I've paid for all this kit myself and I would recommend it wholeheartedly. But it's seen me through some big sessions, and it'll see me through a few more, but I say again, it was almost defeated by a 15-week-old French bulldog, so SBD, have a word. So next up is the cycling kit that I'll tend to carry with me when I am traveling. Watt bikes are what I tend to look for. If I get access to a turbo in somebody's bike, even better, but that is very rare. But what you can do with watt bikes is they're quite adjustable, and if you take the straps out of them, you can clip in with a pair of cleats. So whenever I'm traveling, I will take my Lake cycling shoes with me, because these are my specific position for my bike, which means that the training that I'm doing is much more mimicking the position that I would be on the bike. So these will just go in my gym bag along with everything else I've shown you and come with me wherever I go. I'll also always have my heart rate monitor with me, which is the Garmin HRM Pro, which is another fantastic bit of kit. Wrist heart rate, I don't actually have my watch on, it's charging upstairs. But wrist heart rate is decent to a point, but it's very unreliable. So if you do want reliable heart rate data, if you're training heart rate zones, then it's great to have something like this. MyZone, Polar, there's loads of brands that do them. I've always used Garmin and I've never had an issue, other than when you need to change the battery and use that tiny little screwdriver, which is just about impossible to use. And it's 50-50 whether you're actually going to successfully change the battery without snapping a screw anyway, so danger time. Then I will always have a pair of bib shorts with me as well, because the last thing I want is to try and settle in for a long training ride on a watt bike or something in an alien environment, trying to make the best of a bad situation, and then I have a torn up gooch, for want of a better phrase. So I'll take a pair of these with me. These are from Contact Coffee, by the way, actually very good cycling kit considering they are a coffee brand. But these come with me wherever I go if I know I've got a cycling session booked in. When I am traveling, I will know what I'm doing before I go, so I can pack accordingly, which is why I have a separate bag for all my swimming kit, because there's much more stuff that goes into here. So I don't want to carry this in my gym bag if I absolutely don't have to. But I've got my open water stuff, so neoprene boots, neoprene gloves, neoprene hat. That's all the neoprene, but I've got all that stuff with me. But what I'll take for pool training is a pool boy, a kickboard, my goggles, a swim cap, and a pair of buoyancy shorts. These are basically the neoprene that wetsuits are made with, or wetsuits are made with neoprene, but these are basically there to give you a bit of buoyancy in the pool from your hips, because if you're like me and you're incredibly top heavy and swim at about 45-degree angle, then these will help pick your hips up a little bit more, which puts you in a position that's more similar to swimming in a wetsuit, which means it is more specific to triathlon volume training. So I train in these in pools, and I'll take these with me whenever I'm going swimming. But I tend to keep all my swimming kit in one bag rather than putting it in and out of my gym bag, just because there's so much of it. Obviously there's wetsuits that aren't in here, but I very rarely do any pool swimming in those, and they've got their own separate bag. But on a day-to-day training, indoor traveling basis, that is something that I'll take with me. And that's pretty much it. The only other thing that I will take is obviously a pair of running trainers, some specific clothing for that, but all I've been using for that recently is basically the Gymshark speed range, which I've been traveling in, using to run in, and kind of it's covered me across purposes. I'll always run in a pair of undershorts as well to stop me from chafing, so I will probably carry some chamois cream with me at all times. It's fairly essential. But yeah, I'll chuck in a pair of running shoes before I go anywhere. They won't sit in my bag permanently because I'm doing most of my running whilst I'm not traveling, it's fair to say. But the bulk of my training is done midweek. Saturdays tend to be reserved for long runs, long rides or brick sessions. So the lifting, etc. is done during the week, which is when I'm mostly all over the place. So it's a bit more predictable. But that is a bit of an overview there. There's nothing that I feel like I'm missing. The only things that I would have had more of in the past is maybe snacks when I was a very heavyweight powerlifter. But yeah, there will be a few times where I carry changes of clothes, maybe a few spares of this, a few spares of that. But for the most part, that's pretty much all the kit I use on a week by week, day by day basis. Obviously, I haven't gone into the details of bike stuff, etc., but that doesn't travel with me, so it doesn't really come with me in a bag. But in terms of what is there, what I use, that is an overview. If you do have any questions, do please drop them down below. I think I'm running out of things to say at this point, so I'm going to say goodbye. Do please remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.